She speaks Chinese, the little girl whispered, her voice a fragile thread in the vast silence of his office. The language she told you, she never learned. Carter Williams' hand froze midair, hovering over the tablet displaying his company's future. The city lights glittered below, a silent jeweled carpet, but all the brilliance of his world had just been snuffed out by that single, impossible sentence. He turned slowly. Maya stood in the doorway, a ghost in her own home, her small frame almost lost in the shadows. Her words since the accident had been rationed, precious coins he rarely received. This was a treasure trove of treason. Maya, his voice was strained, tight. Vanessa doesn't speak Chinese. Her dark eyes held his, unwavering. She does. Last night, on her phone. I heard her say words my friend from school taught me. Words like secret and plan. The late afternoon sun spilled through the towering windows of Carter Williams' Atlanta mansion, bathing his office in a golden haze. The light caught the polished walnut desk, the sleek monitors humming with code, and the man himself, a billionaire at 38, his fingers poised above a keyboard as if conducting an invisible orchestra. Carter's dark eyes flickered across lines of data, the backbone of Prometheus, his AI masterpiece that promised to predict human behavior with unnerving precision. A faint smile tugged at his lips. Success was close, so close he could taste it. Yet as the cursor blinked, a shadow moved in the doorway. Maya stood there, her small frame half hidden by the heavy oak door. At 9, she was a ghost of a girl, quiet, watchful, her braids fraying at the ends like her trust in the world. 6 months ago, a car accident had stolen her parents, Carter's brother and sister-in-law, leaving her in his care. She clutched a worn science book, her fingers tight around its spine, and her dark eyes darted toward the new painting above the bookshelf, a muted cityscape of blues and grays, a gift from Vanessa. "Uncle Carter," she said softly, her voice barely breaking the hum of the room. "Are you done yet?" Carter's fingers paused. "Almost, sweetheart." He turned, offering a tired smile. "What's up? You look like you're plotting something." Maya didn't smile back. She stepped closer, her sneakers silent on the thick Persian rug. "I was just wondering about your painting. It's new, right?" Her gaze lingered on the canvas, her small brow furrowing as if it held a secret she couldn't quite name. Carter followed her eyes. "Yeah, Vanessa picked it out. Said my office needed some soul." He chuckled, but the sound felt hollow. Vanessa Lane, his fiancée, had a way of slipping into his life with perfect precision. Coffee when he was drained, laughter when he was low, a touch that steadied his chaos. She was his anchor, or so he thought. "You don't like it?" Maya shrugged, her fingers tightening on the book. "It's fine. Just, feels out of place." She glanced at him, then away, as if weighing whether to say more. Before he could press, his phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "Dinner at 7 to celebrate Prometheus hitting its milestone? Love you." His chest warmed, and he typed back a quick, "Can't wait." "Dinner tonight?" Maya asked, her voice small but sharp, like she'd read the message in his eyes. "Yeah, a little party. You, me, Vanessa, and a few folks from High. He leaned back, stretching. "You can invite your new friend. What's his name? The one you keep talking about?" "Levi," she said, her lips twitching upward for the first time. "He's from school. We play spy games sometimes. He's cool." Her words were casual, but her eyes flickered with something unspoken, like a note struck just off key. Carter nodded, distracted by a new email alert, a report on Prometheus's latest test run. "Sounds fun. Tell him he's welcome." He turned back to his screen, the rhythm of his world resuming. By 7, the mansion's dining room glowed with candlelight, crystal glasses catching the flicker like tiny stars. Vanessa stood at the head of the table, her auburn hair swept elegantly over one shoulder, her emerald dress hugging her frame. She raised a glass of champagne, her smile radiant. "To Carter," she said, her voice smooth as silk, "and to Prometheus, a vision built on trust and transparency. Here's to changing the world." The room erupted in clinks and cheers. Carter's team, engineers, coders, and his CFO Miles, beamed with pride. But Maya, tucked at the far end with a glass of orange juice, didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on Vanessa, who had set her phone on the table's edge, its screen briefly lighting up with an unfamiliar app, a grid of cryptic icons that vanished as Vanessa tapped it off. Maya's grip on her glass tightened. Something about that smile, that app, felt wrong, like a melody played in the wrong key. "Uncle Carter," Maya whispered later, as the guests laughed and Vanessa refilled glasses. "Does Vanessa ever act weird to you?" Carter frowned, kneeling beside her chair. "Weird how, kiddo?" His voice was gentle, but his mind was half on the toast, half on the warmth of Vanessa's words. Maya hesitated, her eyes darting to Vanessa, who was now laughing with Miles. "I don't know, like she's hiding something." She bit her lip, as if the words tasted dangerous. Carter ruffled her hair, his smile reassuring but dismissive. "You've been playing too many spy games with Live Eye. Vanessa's just busy with her consulting work. Don't worry, okay?" He stood, missing the way Maya's shoulders slumped, her gaze lingering on Vanessa's phone as it lit up again, just for a second, before going dark. The party wound down, guests trickling out into the warm Atlanta night. Vanessa lingered, helping Carter clear plates, her hand brushing his with practiced ease. "You're tense," she murmured, her breath warm against his ear. "Big day tomorrow?" "Always," he said, pulling her close. Her lavender perfume enveloped him, familiar, safe. But as she kissed his cheek, her phone buzzed again, and she stepped away to check it, her fingers moving quickly to dim the screen. Carter didn't notice, but Maya, watching from the staircase, did. She saw the way Vanessa's eyes narrowed, the way her lips curved into a smile that didn't reach them, a smile meant for someone else. Upstairs, Maya slipped into her room, the science book forgotten on her bed. She sat cross-legged, staring at the wall, her mind replaying Vanessa's toast. Trust and transparency. The words echoed, sharp and wrong, like a chord struck too hard. She thought of Live Eye, how he'd taught her to spot lies in their spy games, how people's eyes moved when they weren't telling the truth. Vanessa's eyes had moved tonight, darting to her phone, to the painting, to Carter. Maya's stomach twisted. She didn't know what it meant, but she knew it wasn't right. Downstairs, Carter stood alone in his office, the painting's cityscape catching the last of the moonlight. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaustion settling in. Vanessa had slipped upstairs to change, promising to join him soon. His phone pinged, a reminder for tomorrow's board meeting. But as he sat, the silence of the room felt heavier than it should, the painting's blues and grays staring back like eyes he couldn't see. He shook it off, blaming the long day. Yet somewhere deep, a discordant note lingered, faint but undeniable, whispering that something, someone, was not what they seemed. Maya, in her room, pulled her blanket tight. She didn't have proof, not yet. But she had her instincts, honed by loss and sharpened by games with a friend who saw the world differently. She whispered to the dark, "I'm watching you, Vanessa." The words were soft, but they carried a weight that would soon unravel everything. The mansion was a tomb at midnight, its silence broken only by the faint tick of a grandfather clock in the hall. Moonlight sliced through the curtains, casting jagged shadows across the hardwood floors. Maya, barefoot and shivering in her oversized hoodie, crept down the staircase, her small hand grazing the banister. She hadn't slept, not since Vanessa's toast had lodged in her chest like a splinter. The word trust echoed in her mind, sharp and false, driving her from her bed to the kitchen for a glass of water, or so she told herself. But as she passed Carter's office, a sliver of light beneath the door stopped her cold. The door was ajar, just enough to let a low, urgent voice slip through. It was Vanessa, her tone nothing like the honeyed warmth of dinner. The words were clipped, foreign, a rapid cadence Maya couldn't place, but knew wasn't English. Her heart thudded, loud enough she feared it would betray her. She pressed herself against the wall, her 9-year-old frame barely a shadow in the dim hall. The voice paused, then continued, tense, almost angry. Maya's fingers fumbled for her phone, the old iPhone her mother had left behind, its cracked screen glowing faintly as she opened the recording app. She held it to the door's gap, her breath shallow, capturing 20 seconds of that strange staccato language before a creak in the floorboards sent her scrambling back to her room. She dove under her covers, heart racing, and played the recording. The sound was tinny, distorted, but unmistakably Vanessa. Maya's mind spun. She thought of Levi, her friend from school, how he'd chatter in a language from his family during their spy games, teaching her to listen for secrets in tone, not just words. This was no game, though. This was real, and it felt like a blade hovering over her uncle's world. She listened again, straining to catch anything familiar, but the words were a locked door. All she had was the rhythm, urgent, secretive, wrong. Morning came too soon, sunlight spilling into the dining room where Carter sat, nursing a coffee and scrolling through emails. Vanessa was already there, her auburn hair pulled into a sleek bun, her smile as polished as the silverware. She slid a plate of toast toward Maya, who sat rigid, her eyes fixed on the woman she no longer trusted. "Sleep well, sweetheart?" Vanessa asked, her voice dripping with warmth. Maya's fingers tightened around her juice glass. She wanted to scream, to play the recording right there. But Carter's tired smile held her back. She needed him to believe her, not dismiss her as a kid with a wild imagination. So she tested the waters. "Aunt Vanessa," she said, using the honorific she knew Vanessa liked, "do you know any foreign languages? We're learning Spanish at school, and it's kind of cool." Vanessa's laugh was light, almost too perfect. "Oh, Maya, I'm hopeless with languages. English is all I've got." Her eyes crinkled, but they flicked to her phone on the table, its screen dark, but somehow alive with secrets. Maya's stomach twisted. It was a lie, bold and barefaced, and it stung like a slap. She glanced at Carter, hoping he'd catch the falseness, but he was lost in his emails, oblivious to the tension coiling between them. "You sure?" Maya pressed, her voice small but sharp. "I thought I heard something different last night." Vanessa's smile didn't falter, but her fingers paused on her coffee mug, just for a heartbeat. "Must have been the TV, sweetie. Carter leaves it on sometimes when he's working late." She leaned forward, her gaze locking onto Maya's, a silent challenge veiled in kindness. Carter looked up, frowning. "You okay, Maya? You're acting a little off." Maya's throat tightened. She wanted to tell him, to spill everything, but the weight of Vanessa's eyes pinned her down. "I'm fine," she mumbled, dropping her gaze to her plate. The lie burned, but she needed more than a fuzzy recording to make him listen. She needed proof that wouldn't let him look away. Upstairs in the safety of her room, Maya played the recording again, her ear pressed to the phone. The foreign words were a puzzle she couldn't solve, but their urgency clawed at her. She thought of Levi, how he'd laugh during their spy games, pretending to send coded messages in his family's language. She'd never asked what it was, only that it sounded different, like a song she couldn't sing. Now that difference was a lifeline. She didn't understand the words, but she knew Vanessa had lied, and that lie was a crack in the perfect facade her uncle adored. Carter, meanwhile, stood in his office, the morning light glinting off the cityscape painting. He felt a prickle of unease, Maya's words echoing faintly. Weird. She'd called Vanessa weird, and though he'd brushed it off, the seed was planted. He glanced at the painting, its lines suddenly too sharp, too deliberate. Vanessa had insisted on hanging it herself, her fingers lingering on the frame, as if marking her territory. He shook his head, blaming the long hours, the pressure of Prometheus. But as he sat at his desk, the room felt smaller, the air thicker, as if the walls themselves were listening. Maya, curled on her bed, clutched her phone like a weapon. She didn't have the full picture, but she had enough to know Vanessa wasn't who she claimed. The lie about the language was a thread, and Maya was determined to pull it until the whole tapestry unraveled. She thought of Carter, his tired smiles, his trust in a woman who didn't deserve it. She thought of her parents, gone too soon, and how she'd promised herself to protect what was left of her family. "I'll figure it out," she whispered to the empty room, her voice steady despite the fear. "I'll make him see." Downstairs, Vanessa slipped her phone into her purse, her movements smooth but deliberate. She kissed Carter's cheek as she passed his office, her lavender scent lingering like a ghost. "Board meeting today?" she asked, her tone casual but probing. Yeah, Carter said, distracted. Big day for Prometheus. She smiled, her eyes flickering to the painting. You've got this, love. But as she left, her phone buzzed again, and she stepped into the guest room to answer, closing the door with a soft click. The mansion settled back into silence, but it was a deceptive calm, the kind that comes before a storm breaks open the sky. Maya, listening from her room, felt the weight of her secret grow heavier. She didn't know what Vanessa was planning, but she knew one thing. The truth was close, and it was louder than any lie. The morning sun poured through the dining room's tall windows, painting the mahogany table in warm stripes of light. The scent of fresh coffee mingled with the faint tang of orange juice, but the air felt taut, as if the room itself held its breath. Carter sat at the head, his laptop open, emails piling up like unopened wounds. Maya perched across from him, her small hands wrapped around a glass, her eyes darting between her uncle and the empty chair where Vanessa had sat moments before. Vanessa had excused herself to take a call, her heels clicking down the hall with a rhythm too precise, too controlled. Maya's heart pounded, the weight of last night's recording burning a hole in her pocket. She'd barely slept, the foreign words from Vanessa's voice looping in her mind like a coded message she couldn't crack. The lie at breakfast, "English is all I've got," had been so smooth, so practiced, it made Maya's skin crawl. She glanced at Carter, his brow furrowed over some report, oblivious to the storm brewing in her chest. She needed him to listen, to believe her, but the fear of being dismissed as a grieving kid gnawed at her. Still, she couldn't wait any longer. The truth was a splinter, and it had to come out. "Uncle Carter," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can we talk? Alone?" Carter's eyes flicked up, catching the tremor in her tone. He closed his laptop, the soft click loud in the quiet room. "Sure, kiddo, what's on your mind?" He leaned forward, his smile gentle but distracted, as if expecting a child's worry. A lost toy, a bad dream. Maya slid off her chair and tugged him toward the living room, away from the open windows and the echo of Vanessa's footsteps. The plush couch sank under their weight as they sat, the morning light casting long shadows across the hardwood. Maya's fingers fumbled with her phone, her breath hitching. I think Vanessa's hiding something," she said, her words tumbling out. "Last night I heard her in your office. She was talking on the phone, but it wasn't English. It was some foreign language, something secret." Carter's smile faltered, replaced by a frown that deepened the lines around his eyes. He leaned back, rubbing his jaw. "Maya, sweetheart, you were probably half asleep. You sure it wasn't the TV? Or maybe one of my calls. I get international clients sometimes." His voice was kind, but it carried a note of doubt, the kind that made Maya's chest tighten. "I wasn't asleep," she insisted, her voice sharper now. "I heard her. It was her voice, and it wasn't English." She hesitated, then pulled out her phone, her small fingers trembling as she opened the recording app. I recorded it." Carter's brow arched, a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "You recorded it?" He held out his hand and Maya passed him the phone, her heart thudding as he pressed play. The tinny sound filled the room, Vanessa's voice, low and urgent, speaking in a rapid, unfamiliar tongue. The words were unintelligible, but their cadence was sharp, almost commanding, like a general issuing orders in the dead of night. Carter's face hardened, his eyes narrowing as the 20-second clip ended in a faint crackle. He played it again, his jaw tightening. "How do you know this is Vanessa?" he asked, his voice low, almost accusing. "It's just noise, Maya. It could be anything, radio, a podcast, anything." Maya's eyes stung, but she stood her ground, her small frame rigid with determination. "It's her. I know it's her. And she lied, Uncle Carter. I asked her this morning if she knew any foreign languages, and she said no, only English. But I heard her, and—" She paused, swallowing hard. It sounded like the way Levi talks sometimes, when he's joking around in his family's language. "I don't know what it is, but it's not English, and she was hiding it." Carter's gaze softened, but the doubt lingered, a shadow in his eyes. "Levi? Your friend from school?" He leaned forward, searching her face. "Maya, you've been through a lot." Sometimes our minds play tricks, especially after he stopped, not wanting to say the accident. You're sure you didn't imagine this? You and Live Eye play those spy games, right? Maybe you're mixing things up. I'm not mixing anything up. Maya's voice cracked, her hands balling into fists. I know what I heard. She was in your office, alone at midnight. Why would she be there, talking like that, if she wasn't hiding something? Her eyes locked onto his, fierce and unyielding, a 9-year-old's conviction cutting through his adult logic. Carter exhaled, running a hand through his hair. He wanted to dismiss it, to chalk it up to a child's overactive imagination, but the recording gnawed at him. Vanessa's voice, or what sounded like it, was unmistakable, and the lie at breakfast, so casually delivered, now felt like a splinter in his own mind. He thought of the painting, the way she'd insisted on hanging it herself, her fingers lingering on the frame. A coincidence, maybe, but Maya's certainty, her trembling resolve, was no coincidence. Okay, he said finally, his voice low, almost a whisper. I believe you, Maya. I don't know what this means, but I believe you. He pulled her into a hug, her small frame trembling against him. But as he held her, his eyes drifted to the hallway, where Vanessa's heels clicked back toward the dining room, her phone pressed to her ear, her voice now soft and English, all warmth and charm. I've got to make a call, Carter said, releasing Maya. Stay here, okay? Don't say anything to her. He stood, his mind racing, the recording's foreign cadence looping in his head. He didn't know what language it was, but he knew someone who could find out. Leon Barksdale, an old friend from his days dodging corporate espionage, would have answers. Carter's hand tightened around the phone as he stepped into his office, locking the door behind him. Maya stayed on the couch, her knees pulled to her chest. She felt lighter, the weight of her secret shared, but the fear remained, cold and heavy. Vanessa's lie was a crack in the perfect world Carter had built, and Maya had widened it. She thought of Live Eye, how he'd taught her to spot lies in their games, how people's voices change when they hid something. Vanessa's voice had changed, and now Carter's had too. Outside, Vanessa laughed into her phone, her tone bright and carefree. But Maya, watching through the living room's open door, saw the way her fingers gripped the device, white-knuckled, as if holding on to a lifeline. The mansion's warmth felt like a lie now, its walls closing in, whispering secrets only Maya could hear. She clutched her phone, the recording her only weapon, and vowed to keep watching. The truth was out there, sharp and dangerous, and she wouldn't let it slip away. The afternoon light dimmed in Carter Williams' office, the golden haze of morning giving way to a colder, grayer glow. The cityscape painting hung above the bookshelf, its blues and grays now menacing, as if mocking the trust Carter had placed in its giver. He sat at his desk, Maya's phone in his hand, the recording's foreign cadence looping in his mind like a warning siren. Maya stood by the door, her small frame rigid, her eyes wide with a mix of relief and dread. She'd handed him the truth, and now it was his to carry. The weight of it pressed against his chest, a betrayal he hadn't yet named, but could no longer ignore. Carter's fingers hovered over his laptop, hesitating before dialing Leon Barksdale. Leon, a grizzled ex-agent with a bullet scar above his collarbone, had cleaned up messes for Carter before, industrial espionage, corporate leaks, but nothing this personal. Keep this between us, Carter told Maya, his voice low, urgent. Don't let Vanessa suspect anything. Can you do that? Maya nodded, her lips pressed tight, her 9-year-old resolve as steely as any soldier's. She slipped out, leaving Carter alone with the painting and the ghost of Vanessa's lie. Leon answered on the first ring, his voice clipped. Carter, trouble? Big trouble, Carter said, sending the recording through a secure link. I need you to analyze this. Tell me what it is, who it's from, and what it means. Fast. He glanced at the painting, its edges too sharp, too deliberate. And check my office for anything out of place. Leon didn't ask questions. I'm in Atlanta by 6. Send me your security logs too. The line went dead and Carter leaned back, his pulse a dull thud in his temples. He thought of Vanessa's smile at breakfast, her casual dismissal of Maya's question about languages. English is all I've got. The memory stung, her lie a blade slipping between his ribs. He wanted to believe it was a mistake, a misunderstanding, but Maya's certainty and that damned recording left no room for doubt. Downstairs, Vanessa moved through the kitchen, her heels clicking with metronomic precision. She hummed softly, arranging a tray of sandwiches for lunch, her auburn hair catching the light like a halo. But Carter saw it now, the calculated grace, the way her eyes flicked to her phone every few minutes. It screened dark, but alive with secrets. He forced a smile as he joined her, his heart a storm of betrayal and restraint. "You're spoiling us," he said, gesturing to the tray, his voice steady despite the chaos inside. Vanessa's laugh was warm, but her eyes lingered on him a fraction too long. "Only the best for my genius." She leaned in, her lips brushing his cheek, her lavender scent wrapping around him like a trap. "Big day at Hion?" "Always," Carter said, his gaze drifting to the phone in her hand. "You?" "Just client calls," she said, slipping the device into her pocket with a practiced flick. "Nothing exciting." But as she turned away, Carter caught the faintest tremor in her fingers, a crack in her perfect facade. By 6, Leon arrived, his presence a quiet thunder in the mansion's stillness. He swept the office with a handheld scanner, his movements precise, his face unreadable. Maya hovered nearby, pretending to read her science book, her eyes tracking Leon's every move. The scanner beeped softly near the painting, and Leon's jaw tightened. With a quick motion, he lifted the canvas from its hooks, revealing a black device no larger than a coin embedded in the frame. A camera, its lens glinting like a predator's eye. Carter's stomach dropped. "What the hell is that?" "High-end," Leon said, prying it free with a gloved hand. AES 256 encryption, VPN routed to an offshore server in the Caymans. This wasn't cheap. He turned to Carter, his eyes hard. "Someone's been watching you." Carter's mind raced, replaying every moment Vanessa had lingered in this room. Her laughter, her touches, her insistence on hanging the painting herself. He felt sick, the betrayal sinking deeper. "The recording," he said, voice hoarse. "What did you find?" Leon plugged a tablet into his portable analyzer, pulling up the audio file. "It's Mandarin," he said, his tone flat but heavy. "She's talking to someone about Prometheus. Instructions to accelerate the timeline. Extract the full architecture. They mention a final phase in 48 hours. He paused, meeting Carter's gaze. "She's not just spying, Carter. She's orchestrating a heist." The room spun. Carter gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles white. He saw Vanessa's face in his mind. Her tears when she'd spoken of her childhood. Her warmth when she'd kissed him under this very painting. Had any of it been real? Or was it all a performance? Every smile a calculated step toward his ruin? He thought of Maya, her quiet courage, her whispered warning. She'd seen what he couldn't, and now he had to act. "We need a plan," Carter said, his voice steadying, anger replacing pain. "We're not letting her get away with this." Leon nodded, already pulling schematics of high-end security system. "We set a trap. Feed her something she can't resist. Fake data, a dummy file. Let her think she's won, then catch her when she moves." He glanced at Maya, who'd crept closer, her book forgotten. "Your niece is sharp. She's already one step ahead of most of my team." Maya's cheeks flushed, but her eyes were fierce. "I can help," she said. "I know how she moves, where she looks. I've been watching her." Carter knelt beside her, his heart aching with pride and guilt. "You've done enough, sweetheart. You were braver than I." He pulled her into a hug, her small frame trembling, but resolute. "But if you want to help, you stay close. We do this together." She nodded, her eyes shining. Together. Leon outlined the plan, a fake API vulnerability in Prometheus's server, a dummy drive loaded with corrupted code, and a tracking beacon to trace its destination. Carter listened, his mind sharpening, the fog of betrayal clearing. Vanessa would be home soon, her smile as perfect as ever, but this time, he'd be the one watching. He glanced at the painting, now leaning against the wall, its camera lifeless but damning. The room felt colder, the air thick with the weight of what was coming. Outside, Vanessa's car pulled into the driveway, her heels clicking up the steps. She called out, her voice bright, oblivious to the storm waiting inside. "Carter? Maya, I brought dessert." The door swung open and her smile filled the foyer, radiant and false. Carter stood, his hand on Maya's shoulder, his eyes locked on the hallway. "We're in here," he called, his voice calm but edged with steel. The game had changed, and Vanessa didn't know it yet. But as her footsteps approached, Carter felt the truth settle into his bones. The woman he loved was a lie, and the little girl beside him was his only truth. The painting watched in silence, its secrets exposed, as the first move in their counterattack began. The Atlanta night pressed against the mansion's windows, a velvet curtain hiding the storm brewing within. Carter stood in his office, the cityscape painting now a discarded relic on the floor, its hidden camera a silent confession of Vanessa's betrayal. The air hummed with tension, the kind that sharpens every sound, the tick of the clock, the faint creak of the floorboards. Maya's soft breaths as she sat cross-legged on the leather couch, her eyes fixed on him. Leon Barksdale's tablet glowed on the desk, displaying a mock-up of a fake API vulnerability for Prometheus, a digital lure designed to trap a traitor. Carter's jaw was set, his mind a blade honed by anger and resolve. Tonight, Vanessa would make her move, and he would be ready. "Everything's in place," Leon said, his voice low, his bullet-scarred neck catching the lamplight. He tapped the tablet, pulling up a live feed of the mansion's security grid. The dummy server's live, broadcasting a temporary glitch in the firewall. The drive's in the safe, loaded with corrupted code and a blockchain tracer. If she takes it, we'll know exactly where it goes. Carter nodded, his eyes flicking to Maya. She clutched her old iPhone, the one that had captured Vanessa's Mandarin whispers, her small fingers tight with purpose. "What about the cameras?" he asked. "Every angle covered," Leon replied. "Infrared in the office, micro drones outside the house. If she moves, we see it. If she calls her handler, we hear it." He glanced at Maya, a rare softness in his eyes. "Your niece's idea to add the tracer was smart. She's got instincts." Maya's cheeks flushed, but she didn't smile. "She checks her phone all the time," she said, her voice steady despite her age. "When she thinks no one's looking. I bet she'll use it tonight." Carter knelt beside her, his hand gentle on her shoulder. "You sure you're okay with this, Maya? You don't have to be here." "I want to," she said, her dark eyes fierce. "She lied to us. To you. I'm not letting her hurt you again." Her words cut deeper than Carter expected, a reminder of the family he'd almost failed. He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat, and stood as the front door clicked open. Vanessa's voice floated through the foyer, bright and effortless. "Carter? Maya? I'm home." Her heels clicked closer, each step a calculated note in a performance she didn't know was unraveling. Carter forced a smile as she appeared in the doorway, her emerald dress replaced by a sleek black sweater and jeans, her auburn hair loose. She held a paper bag. "Dessert," she'd said, but her eyes scanned the room, lingering on the safe behind Carter's desk. "Long day?" Carter asked, his tone casual, but his pulse racing. He leaned against the desk, blocking her view of the safe, playing the part of the tired fiancé. "Exhausting," Vanessa sighed, setting the bag down. Her phone was in her hand, its screen dark but alive, a silent accomplice. "Clients never stop. You." Her smile was perfect, but Carter saw it now. The slight tightness at the corners, the flicker of calculation in her gaze. "Same," he said, gesturing to his laptop. "Prometheus is acting up. A glitch in the server update tonight. I've got to head to Hion to fix it." He paused, watching her closely. "Might be late." Her eyes lit up, just for a fraction of a second, before she masked it with concern. "Oh, babe, that sounds stressful. Need me to stay up? Keep you company when you're back?" "No need," Carter said, his voice smooth but edged. "You and Maya can hold down the fort." He glanced at Maya, who nodded, her face a mask of innocence that hid a steel core. As Carter grabbed his jacket and left, he felt Vanessa's gaze on his back, a predator sizing up her moment. But he wasn't going far. Outside, Leon waited in a black SUV, its interior a mobile command center of screens and wires. Carter slid into the passenger seat, his eyes on the feed from the office. Maya, under strict instructions, had retreated to her room, her phone linked to Leon's system to monitor alerts. The trap was set, and Vanessa was the prey. Inside, Vanessa moved with purpose. She waited 10 minutes, long enough to be sure Carter was gone, then slipped into his office. The camera caught every detail, her quick glance at the door, her fingers typing a code into her phone, the app's cryptic grid lighting up the screen. She approached the safe, her movements fluid, practiced. The combination clicked open, revealing the dummy drive, its sleek casing glinting under the desk lamp. She hesitated, her breath catching, then pocketed it, her face unreadable. Leon's voice crackled through Carter's earpiece. "She's got it. Sending a message now, encrypted, to an offshore node. We're tracing it." Carter's heart pounded, but he kept his voice steady. "Where's she going?" "Looks like a meet. Warehouse district, 30 minutes out. I've got drones en route." Leon's fingers flew across his keyboard, pulling up a map. "She's moving fast." Carter watched the feed as Vanessa left the mansion, her car speeding into the night. He thought of her smile, her lies, the way she'd woven herself into his life. The pain was still there, but it was buried under a colder fire. Resolve. "Follow her," he said, "and get ready." At the warehouse, a derelict shell of rusted beams and broken windows, Vanessa parked under a flickering streetlight. A second car waited, its driver a shadow in a dark coat. The drone's infrared lenses caught their exchange. Vanessa handing over the drive, the man nodding curtly before slipping it into a silver case. Carter's blood boiled, but he held still, trusting the plan. "Now," Leon whispered, and the night erupted. Floodlights blazed, pinning Vanessa and her contact in stark white. Leon's team, 4 operatives in tactical gear, swarmed from the shadows, weapons drawn. Vanessa froze, her face draining of color, the drive's case clattering to the ground. The man bolted, but a drone stun dart dropped him before he reached his car. Carter stepped out of the SUV, his silhouette sharp against the floodlights. Vanessa's eyes met his, wide with shock, then defiance. "Carter," she stammered, "this isn't what it looks like." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The drone's microphones had caught every word of her exchange, every damning syllable. Back at the mansion, Maya watched the live feed on her phone, her small hands trembling, but her jaw set. She'd been right, and now Vanessa knew it too. Leon approached, cuffs in hand. "Game's over," he said, his voice cold. Vanessa's shoulders slumped, but her eyes never left Carter's, searching for something. Forgiveness, perhaps, or a way out. She found neither. Carter turned away, the warehouse's chill seeping into his bones. The drive was fake, the trap sprung, but the victory felt hollow. Maya's face flashed in his mind, her courage the only light in this darkness. He climbed back into the SUV, his voice low. "Take her in. I need to get home to Maya." The night swallowed the warehouse as they drove away. The truth laid bare, but the cost still unspoken. The mansion's silence was a living thing, heavy and oppressive, as Carter stepped through the front door. The floodlights of the warehouse still burned in his mind. Vanessa's shocked face frozen in their glare, her hands cuffed as Leon's team led her away. The dummy drive, its blockchain tracer already pinging a server in the Caymans, had done its job, but victory tasted like ash. Carter's office, once a sanctuary, now felt like a crime scene, the air thick with the echo of betrayal. Maya waited in the living room, her small frame curled on the couch, her phone glowing with the live feed of the warehouse takedown. Her eyes met his, wide but steady, a 9-year-old's courage outshining the chaos. "You okay, sweetheart?" Carter asked, his voice rough as he knelt beside her. Maya nodded, but her fingers gripped her phone like a lifeline. "Is she gone?" "For now," Carter said, brushing a stray braid from her face. "You did good, Maya. You saw what I couldn't." Her lips twitched, not quite a smile, but enough to ease the knot in his chest. He stood, glancing at the hallway where Leon had set up a makeshift interrogation room. Vanessa was there, waiting, and Carter knew this wasn't over until he faced her. The room was stark, lit by a single lamp that cast harsh shadows across the oak table. Vanessa sat, hands cuffed, her auburn hair disheveled, but her posture defiant. Leon stood by the door, his tablet open, replaying the night's evidence. Her encrypted messages, the warehouse exchange, Maya's original recording. Carter entered, his face a mask of calm, but his pulse thundered. He set the dummy drive on the table, its sleek casing glinting like a guillotine. Vanessa's eyes flicked to it, then to him. "Carter," she said, her voice softer than he expected. "You don't understand." He didn't sit. He didn't blink. He pressed play on Leon's tablet, and Maya's recording filled the room. Vanessa's Mandarin whispers, urgent and damning, from that midnight call. Then came the later intercepts, her voice coordinating the drive's handover, each word a nail in her coffin. Carter leaned forward, his hands braced on the table, his voice low and cold. "Why, Vanessa? I gave you everything. My home, my heart, my trust. Why?" Her facade cracked, her eyes glistening but unyielding. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she said, her voice trembling. "I was just a job at first. Get close, get the data, get out. But you," she swallowed, her gaze dropping to the table. "You made me want it to be real. I thought I could walk away, keep you safe. But they wouldn't let me. They had my family, my past, everything." Carter's jaw tightened, her words slicing through him. He wanted to believe her, to cling to the memory of her laughter, her touch. But he saw Maya's face in his mind, her trembling hands as she handed him the recording. "You lied to a child," he said, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. "You used my love to steal my life's work. Don't talk to me about real." Vanessa flinched, but her eyes flashed with defiance. "You think I wanted this? I was trapped, Carter. You don't know who they are, the people behind this. They don't stop. They don't forgive." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I tried to protect you, in my own way." "Protect me?" Carter's laugh was bitter, hollow. "You planted cameras in my home. You sold Prometheus to the highest bidder. That's not protection. That's treason." He turned away, unable to look at her, his hands shaking with the effort to stay composed. Leon stepped forward, his voice like gravel. "Her contact's already talking. Orion X, a shell company in the Caymans, and a bigger fish we haven't named yet. We've got enough to bury you, Vanessa." He slid a tablet across the table, showing logs of her transmissions, each timestamp a betrayal. Vanessa's shoulders slumped, her fight draining away. "I loved you," she whispered, almost to herself. "That wasn't a lie." Carter didn't turn back. "It doesn't matter," he said, his voice barely audible. "You chose them over us." He nodded to Leon, who signaled his team. Two operatives stepped in, guiding Vanessa to her feet. She didn't resist, her eyes locked on Carter's back as they led her out, her heels echoing like a fading pulse. Maya stood in the hallway unnoticed, her small frame hidden in the shadows. She'd heard every word, her heart aching for her uncle, but burning with a quiet pride. She'd been right, and she'd protected him. As Vanessa passed, their eyes met for a fleeting moment. Vanessa's filled with regret, Maya's with resolve. The front door closed behind her, the sound final, like a book slamming shut. Carter sank into a chair, his hands pressed to his face. The room felt empty, the silence louder than any scream. He thought of Vanessa's tears, her confession, and wondered how much was true. Had she loved him, even a little? Or was it all a script, every kiss a line in a play? The doubt gnawed at him, but Maya's soft footsteps broke through. She climbed onto the chair beside him, her hand small but warm on his arm. "You okay, Uncle Carter?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. He looked at her, her dark eyes older than her years, and managed a faint smile. "I will be, because of you." He pulled her close, her warmth anchoring him in the wreckage of his trust. "You saved us, Maya. You saw the truth when I was blind." She nestled against him, silent for a moment. "I didn't want to be right," she whispered. "I just wanted you safe." Carter's throat tightened. He thought of the painting, the camera, the lies that had almost destroyed everything. But Maya had been his shield, her instincts sharper than any code he'd ever written. "We're a team now," he said, his voice firm. "No more secrets." Outside, the night was still, the stars cutting through the dark like tiny blades. Leon's team loaded Vanessa into a van, her silhouette disappearing into the shadows. The tracer in the dummy drive was already working, its signal pinging across continents, unraveling the network she'd served. Carter didn't watch her go. He didn't need to. The truth was out, raw and jagged, and it was enough for now. But as he held Maya, the weight of what lay ahead settled over him. Vanessa wasn't the end. She was a thread in a larger web, one that stretched beyond Orionex, beyond the Caymans, to someone or something still in the dark. The game wasn't over, but Carter was done playing by their rules. He kissed Maya's forehead, his resolve hardening. "We'll finish this," he whispered, more to himself than to her. "Together." The Atlanta dawn broke softly, painting the mansion's windows in hues of rose and gold. But the warmth couldn't touch the chill that lingered in Carter Williams' bones. A week had passed since Vanessa's cuffs clicked shut, since her whispered confession had shattered the last of his illusions. The office, once a battlefield of secrets, was quiet now, the cityscape painting gone, replaced by a bare wall that felt like a scar. Carter sat at his desk, staring at a report from Leon Barksdale. Orionex, the rival firm tied to Vanessa's betrayal, was crumbling under federal scrutiny, their stock plummeting as FBI raids uncovered shell companies and encrypted servers. It should have felt like victory, but it only deepened the ache in his chest, a reminder of how close he'd come to losing everything. Maya padded into the room, her oversized hoodie swallowing her small frame, her braids loose from sleep. She carried a mug of coffee, too sweet and too strong, just the way she'd seen him make it. "You didn't sleep," she said, setting it down, her voice quiet but piercing, as if she could see the shadows under his eyes even in the dim light. Carter managed a tired smile, taking the mug. "You're getting good at this, kiddo. But yeah, sleep's been tricky." He sipped, the warmth grounding him, and looked at her, his niece, his sentinel, the one who'd seen through Vanessa's lies when he'd been blind. "You okay after everything?" Maya climbed onto the couch, tucking her legs beneath her. "I think so. It's just weird. Knowing she's gone, but feeling like she's still here." Her eyes flicked to the bare wall, then back to him, older than her by 9 years. "Like the house remembers her." Carter nodded, the weight of her words settling heavy. The mansion did feel different, its silence no longer comforting, but haunted, as if Vanessa's presence lingered in the corners. He stood, crossing to the window, the city skyline sharp against the morning haze. "We're going to fix that," he said, more to himself than to her. "Starting today." The day unfolded with purpose. Carter called an emergency meeting at Hyon's headquarters, a sleek glass tower that felt both fortress and cage. The boardroom buzzed with nervous energy as executives filed in, their faces a mix of unease and admiration. Carter stood at the head, his charcoal sweater a stark contrast to the tailored suits he once wore, his voice steady but unyielding. "We were breached," he began, his words cutting through the murmurs. "Not by hackers, not by code, but by trust. Vanessa wasn't just a spy, she was a symptom of what we ignored. That ends now." He outlined the overhaul: a full audit of Hyon's systems, new multi-factor authentication using blockchain-based keys, and air-gapped servers for Prometheus's core code. "We verify everything," he said, his gaze sweeping the room. "No blind spots, no assumptions. If we don't, we're not just risking data, we're risking everything we've built." The room nodded, some reluctantly, but the weight of the Orionex scandal, now breaking news on every tech outlet, silenced any dissent. Back at the mansion, Carter took Maya to her school, a low brick building alive with children's laughter. He'd promised to meet Live Eye, the friend who'd unknowingly sharpened Maya's instincts with their spy games. In the school's library, Live Eye sat with his parents, a quiet couple with warm smiles. Carter shook their hands, his voice earnest. "Your son helped Maya see what I couldn't," he said. "She heard something. Different because of the games they played. I owe you for that." Levi's mother smiled, her accent soft but clear. "He talks about Maya all the time. She's special." Maya blushed, nudging Live Eye, who grinned and whispered something about their next mission. Carter handed the principal a check, a donation for the school's cultural exchange program, a quiet thank you for the connection that had saved him. That evening, Carter and Maya ate at a diner downtown, a retro spot with red vinyl booths and chipped mugs. The jukebox played a faint jazz tune, and for the first time in weeks, Carter felt the knot in his chest loosen. Maya stirred syrup into her milk, her eyes thoughtful. "Why didn't I tell you sooner?" she asked, her voice small. "I saw her acting weird for weeks, but I thought, maybe you'd be mad." Carter leaned across the table, his hand covering hers. "You told me when it mattered, Maya. You saved Hyon, saved me. Don't ever think you have to hide the truth to protect me." Her eyes glistened, but she nodded, a weight lifting from her small shoulders. He thought of Vanessa, her confession in the interrogation room. "I loved you," and the hollow space it left. She'd been a lie, but the pain was real, a wound that would take time to heal. Yet Maya, sitting across from him, with her syrupy milk and fierce heart, was his anchor. "You're my family," he said, his voice thick. "That's what matters." Maya smiled, a real one this time, and the diner's warmth wrapped around them like a promise. Back home, they sat on the living room floor, sorting through old photos of Maya's parents, Carter's brother, laughing in a sunlit snapshot. "They'd be proud of you," Carter said, his finger tracing the frame, "for being brave, for seeing the truth." Maya leaned against him, her voice soft. "I just wanted to keep you safe." Carter's throat tightened. He pulled her close, the silence between them no longer haunted, but healing. The mansion felt lighter, its walls no longer whispering Vanessa's lies. But as he glanced at his phone, a new message from Leon blinked. "Orion X is just the start. There's a bigger player. We need to talk." Carter's pulse quickened, the shadow of a larger threat looming. He didn't reply. Not yet. For now he held Maya, the one truth he could trust, and let the moment anchor him. Outside, the Atlanta night was clear, the stars sharp against the dark. The house stood quiet, its scars still fresh but no longer bleeding. Carter knew the fight wasn't over. Vanessa's network had deeper roots, and someone was still out there watching. But with Maya by his side, he wasn't afraid. They'd faced betrayal and won. Whatever came next, they'd face it together, their bond stronger than any code, any lie, any camera hidden in the dark. Spring draped Atlanta in a soft veil of green, the mansion's garden alive with blooming azaleas and the delicate hum of bees. A month had passed since Vanessa's betrayal was unmasked, since the cuffs snapped shut and Orionex's empire began to crumble under the weight of exposed secrets. Carter Williams stood on the back porch, coffee mug in hand, the morning sun warming his face. The scars of betrayal lingered, less in the mansion's walls, now stripped of hidden cameras, and more in the quiet corners of his heart. But the air felt lighter, the silence no longer a threat but a promise of something new. Inside, Maya's laughter echoed from the kitchen, a sound that stitched his wounds closed with every note. Carter stepped inside, finding Maya at the counter, her braids swinging as she smeared peanut butter on toast. Her oversized hoodie, one of his old high-end swag shirts, hung past her knees, and her eyes sparkled with a mischief he hadn't seen since before the accident took her parents. "You're gonna burn the toast again," she teased, glancing at the toaster where his bread was charring. He chuckled, snatching the toast with a mock glare. "Says the girl who thinks syrup belongs in milk." Their banter was easy now, a rhythm forged in the fire of their shared fight. Maya was no longer just his niece. She was his partner, her courage the spark that had saved Hyon in him. He ruffled her hair, and she swatted his hand, giggling. "Got plans today, kiddo?" "School," she said, then grinned. "And maybe teaching Live Eye how to lose at our spy game. He's terrible at hiding." Her mention of Live Eye, her friend who'd unknowingly sharpened her instincts, brought a warmth to Carter's chest. The boy's playful stories, shared in a language Maya couldn't name, had been the key to unlocking Vanessa's lies. Carter's smile faded slightly as he thought of Leon's message from a week ago. There's a bigger player. The shadow of a larger network loomed, but today he pushed it aside. Today was for rebuilding, for Maya, for the future they were carving from the ashes. He'd spent the past month fortifying Hyon, blockchain-based authentication, air-gapped servers, a new internal ethics board led by Leon. But the real change was here, in the kitchen, in the way Maya's laughter filled the spaces Vanessa's lies had left empty. Later that morning, Carter stood in Hyun's boardroom, the Atlanta skyline glittering beyond the glass. His team gathered, their faces a mix of resolve and pride. He tapped a tablet, pulling up a new project interface, its sleek design pulsing with promise. "This is Project Maya," he said, his voice steady, commanding. "An AI to protect kids online, detecting predatory behavior, flagging scams, alerting parents before it's too late. It's inspired by someone who saw what we all missed." His eyes found Maya, seated at the edge of the room, her school blazer slightly too big, but her presence undeniable. The room erupted in applause, and Maya's cheeks flushed, but she held her head high. Carter caught her eye, a silent thank you passing between them. The project wasn't just a product, it was a legacy, a testament to her courage, and a shield for others like her. The team peppered him with questions, machine learning algorithms, behavioral anomaly detection. But Carter's mind drifted to the moment Maya had handed him that recording, her small voice trembling but sure. She'd changed everything. That afternoon, they drove to a botanical garden, the air thick with the scent of jasmine and fresh earth. Maya darted ahead, her sneakers kicking up gravel as she stopped by a cluster of monarch butterflies, their wings flickering like tiny flames. "Look, Uncle Carter," she called, her voice bright. "They're everywhere." He crouched beside her, watching a butterfly land on her outstretched hand. "They migrate thousands of miles," he said, "all on instinct. Even after storms, they find their way." "Even when they're lost?" she asked, her eyes tracing the butterfly's delicate wings. "Especially then," Carter said, his voice soft. "They're stronger than they look." He paused, his hand resting on her shoulder. "Like you." Maya smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes and erased the shadows of the past months. They walked through the garden, her chatter filling the silence. Stories of school, Live Eye's latest spy game, her plans to design a logo for Project Maya. Carter listened, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Vanessa's betrayal had cracked him open, but Maya had rebuilt him, piece by piece. Back at the mansion, they sat in his office, not working but playing. Maya had downloaded an app to learn a new language, inspired by her games with Levi. She pointed at the screen, teaching Carter a word she'd picked up. "This one means trust," she said, her finger tracing the unfamiliar script. "Levi says it's important in his family." Carter repeated the word, his pronunciation clumsy but earnest. "Trust," he echoed, his eyes meeting hers. "I'm learning where to put it now." He thought of Vanessa, her final whispered confession. "I loved you," and the network still lurking in the shadows. Leon's warning hung over him, but it felt distant, less urgent in this moment. He had Maya, and that was enough to face whatever came next. The evening sun slanted through the office windows, casting a warm glow over the bare wall where the painting once hung. Carter leaned back, watching Maya giggle at his mangled pronunciation. The mansion was no longer haunted, its silence no longer a threat but a canvas for new beginnings. He thought of Project Maya, its algorithms already in development, a shield born from a child's courage. He thought of the butterflies, fragile but fierce, finding their way through storms. "We make a good team, don't we?" Maya asked, her voice soft but sure. Carter grinned, pulling her into a hug. "The best." Outside, the garden hummed with life, the butterflies lifting into the sky, their wings catching the last light. The world beyond was still dangerous, its secrets waiting to be uncovered. But here, in this moment, Carter felt something he hadn't in months: peace. The language of trust was new, fragile, but it was theirs, and it was enough.